Cannabis. When Daryn Blackwell was just 10 years old, he was diagnosed with leukaemia. 2 years later, he developed another, even rarer form of cancer, making the outlook for Daryn and his family incredibly bleak.
Just when they were about to give up hope, something quite incredible happened. Daryn and his mum, Callie, join us now alongside Dr. Chris to tell us more. And welcome, both of you.
Welcome,
Lovely to see you.
welcome.
So we mentioned, first of all, that first diagnosis in 2010. You said you'll never forget because you were sitting in KFC when the call comes through. You found out that you got the leukaemia, the terrible effects of chemotherapy, then you went into remission. But it was 2012, at the age of 12, that you then became one of a very, very exclusive club, one that you never want to get into. 1 in 7 billion, 5 people on the planet have Langerhans cell sarcoma. What's that?
There's not a lot of research into it, so I'm not too sure on what it is. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
So the treatment that you were facing that the doctors recommended was a bone marrow transplant?
Yeah, it was extensive chemo and radiotherapy, and then bone marrow transplant.
And you didn't have just one transplant, this was 3 that you had to have.
Yeah.
And how did you get on with that?
Well, they failed,
Yeah.
the first 3. But yeah, it's not too trouble. So it's not a big problem to have them. So.
But then after that, this is, I mean, as a mum, because he then really began to suffer.
Yeah.
You have to watch him suffer. How bad was it?
Well, after the 4th transplant, they told us that, you know, the first 3 had failed and literally all they had was 1 more chance for him. They had 1 more bag of his own cells, no more. They were, you know, they'd stressed the thing to us that there was no more chances after this. And unfortunately, 3 days after he had his final transplant, he trapped his fingers down the side of the bed and then picked up some infections. Oh. Now, obviously, infections with no immune system whatsoever, and no way for an immune system to even start to build within his body. He was literally being kept alive by antibiotics. That's what they told us. He did get incredibly ill. Throughout his whole treatment, he'd been very happy and smiley, and he'd always tried to be quite jovial, but actually those last couple of months were very, very difficult. He was in a lot of pain.
And it started to, I mean, the necrosis started to creep in, sort of fingers and hands, you know, losing.
Yes.
You were given, I think, 3 days.
Yeah. 3 days a week at most is what they told me when I asked them the time scale.
But you planned your funeral, hadn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To what extent?
All of it.
What were you going to do?
It was going to be fancy dress, and I'd chosen all the costumes for people, and it was going to be quite embarrassing for some of the people to come. So.
And so, I mean, we're sort of talking about this now, but you know, and obviously that's fun, and you want to keep it light and this, that, and the other. But to be faced with that, to be faced with the fact that you've got 3 days to a week, and being very fully aware of this, and having to say goodbye to your friends and loved one, what does that feel like to face that? It's
once you accept it, it becomes very calming, and it becomes quite nice in the sense. It's very hard to explain.
You'd resigned yourself.
Yeah.
In fact, had
I
you,
just
you were at
accepted
peace
it, and
with
it just yeah.
And because the pain was so bad.
Yeah.
You actually said you wanted to go.
Yeah, I did.
He was looking forward to it.
After 4 years of treatment, it's enough.
Enough was enough. And so this story then takes an entirely different turn. How did that happen?
Through lots of research, I'd done lots of research. Obviously, when his secondary cancer arrived and it was so unknown, I turned to the internet and started looking. And over the following months and couple of years afterwards, cannabis just kept popping up. People kept emailing me, "You need to try this. You need to." And I said, "But he hasn't got cancer. You know, the cancers are gone. This is now a completely different issue. It won't work for him. There's no." And I would dismiss it and dismiss it. And it actually came to the point where I was in hospital with Daryn, and he was so incredibly ill and really on a high dose of morphine that he was actually now on fentanyl, which they can't go any further than that. And it wasn't working against his hands and the other issues he had with his stomach. And I asked the doctor for Bedrocan, which is a cannabis-based pain relief that's available in Europe, because I didn't. You know, I wanted to go through the proper measures, and she actually told me we can't because it hasn't been licensed for children. So, you know, and more of it came up. People just kept saying, and I thought, do you know what? What have I got to lose?
And you've got nothing to lose at that point.
He's dying anyway, you know. So
they just withdrawing your antibiotics. At this point, there was no other treatment.
No.
So you took this, and you asked him, and you said, yeah, let's try it.
I was happy to.
What did you notice? How quickly did things change?
Oh my God! I mean, Honestly, the effect of it blew my mind. It wasn't what I expected. All I expected was done a little bit of research, and some people use cannabis to kind of alleviate their anxiety and some pain, and that's what Daryn was really experiencing. And on day 70, when they said there's definitely nothing in his bone marrow, there's nothing there, you've now just got to wait. Daryn got very anxious and said, well, how much longer do I have to wait? They started to try and up the morphine, introduce sleeping tablets, and so that's when I actually gave it. And within half an hour to an hour...
How was it administered?
Under the tongue, sublingually. It's just a tincture. It's not the oil that people talk about. It was just a tincture.
And what did you notice?
We noticed within half an hour to an hour that he was just chilled out. He just relaxed. The anxiety stopped. He no longer was panicking, and he was able to be compus mentus, which he wasn't able to be on the morphine.
But health-wise, I mean, actually, things being tested against you, your white blood cells began to go up.
Yeah, after 5 days. Obviously, they told us nothing in his bone marrow. So, gave it to him 5 days later, when the bandages came off his hand and we saw healthy fingers, which we were told there was no way they were under there. When we saw a healthy finger, obviously the doctors started panicking. This was now day 75 after the transplant.
And he was meant to only be there for three days.
Yeah, and nobody has ever engrafted after 50 days. So day 75, and all of a sudden his white count has appeared. The doctors start running around frantically. Doctors from Bristol Children's Hospital were called in to do some more blood tests, which I said, well, there's no point. You told me only a week ago there's nothing there. And obviously, in the blood count, it was there. It's very small, but it was there.
And to test the theory, you actually withdrew the cannabis for a little while,
I did,
and the blood count started to go down again.
So where are you now? How are you now?
Perfectly healthy. My blood's all normal.
You stress this doesn't work for everybody. This is not a cure.
No,
this
it's
is something that worked for you.
And you could be prosecuted. Let's be honest.
Well, the law, under current laws in England and Wales, cannabis is not registered as having any therapeutic value. Anyone using the drug, even for medical reasons, could be charged for possession. Possession carrying a maximum sentence of 5 years in jail or an unlimited fine. Chris, how does the medical community get its head around something like this?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. From no white cells, given cannabis and white cells start rising. You cannot argue against that. Something was happening. Now, in terms of an explanation, there are two possibilities here. One is that he went into spontaneous remission. Now, this is a situation where the cancer goes and the patient gets back to normal health. It's very rare. It's about 1 in 100,000 cases, and even that's just a guess. They don't know for sure. So, OK, that's a possibility. Now, with regards to cannabis, there's a possibility there, because cannabis has been found to have anti-tumour, anti-carcinogenic effects in laboratory experiments on animals. It's had an effect on cancer cells in the laboratory, but there have been no sort of impressive human cancer trials with cannabis.
Why aren't there trials? Look at this.
Yeah, I think that there probably are trials ongoing now that we do not know about that haven't yet been published. Because, I mean, it is fascinating. And cannabis we now use, it is licensed for use in this country in patients with MS who get muscle spasms.
Yes.
And the cannabis relieves the spasms and the pain. It also is a pain reliever in cancer patients and also reduces the nausea and vomiting in chemotherapy in cancer patients.
Well, it's a fascinating story.
Really is.
We're so happy that
you're so
you're
well.
here and healthy.
Amazing.
Good luck with the diner. He wants to open his own vegan American themed
If anyone wants to give him
diner.
an apprenticeship as a chef, then please. He's dying to become an apprentice.
Who would not want to give an apprenticeship to the boy in 7 billion?
Yeah, totally.
That's the book. That's what we've been talking. The full story, all in here, and absolutely fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
very
Lovely to
much.
meet you.